Deborah Mensah-Bonsu. I now work at Space Ape Games. I'm going to go through a little bit about my journey, sort of my career journey, just so you guys can see that you don't necessarily have to start in games to end in games. Why is that funny?
No, the previous talk had a reference to that.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Perfect
I swear we
follow.
didn't. We're not in cahoots or anything, but that's good that we. So what I'm going to chat about today, what did and do I do now? I'll chat a little bit about Space Ape as a studio, why I am interested in education, why as a studio we're interested in education. I'll chat about the Varsity program, which is probably going to be most interesting to you guys, our plans for it for the short term and long term, and some of the best advice that I ever got that I will share with you. So my career, this is then. So I started out in journalism actually. So when I was a kid, I didn't grow up with games. My family didn't have a lot of money. We never had consoles. I didn't even have a computer as a kid. So my brother and I, we always just played outside. Like gaming was just not something that I grew up with necessarily. And so I started out in journalism. I always liked to write, even when I was a kid. I wrote up a lot of stories. I had a big imagination. I'd always sort of include my friends in fictional stories. I'd always ask like, oh, when's the next story coming out? Because I'd want to see like how their lives unfolded, their fake lives unfolded. So I always sort of knew that writing was something that I was really passionate about. And I also used to always make my mom play school with me when I was a kid. So I was like a nerd before it was even a thing. I had stuffed animals, my mom, we'd play school together. You'll see that I'm also really into education later on. So fast forward, I went into university and I thought, okay, well, I like to write, so I guess journalism, because I have an idea of what that means or what that job would look like if I get out at the end. So that's what I did. I went into journalism. I became a reporter, a producer. I worked in print, TV, radio, you name it. I did it. I moved all around Canada for work. And I did that for more than half a decade. And then at some point decided, you know what, I don't really love news journalism and maybe I don't want to do that anymore. So I ended up quitting and then moving to Europe. I am actually German by birth, so it wasn't totally random that I came back to Europe. I grew up in Germany as a kid before moving to Canada, so I thought, hey, I'd like to come back here at some point. And if I'm going to go down a different career path, I might as well move back to Europe now, because why not? So that's what I did. And then when I first moved to Germany, then moved to London shortly thereafter. And I thought, well, what do I want to do with my life now that I don't necessarily want to be a news journalist anymore? I thought, okay, maybe marketing, maybe something in education. I was like, do I want to become a teacher? I'm not sure. And then I got a call from Microsoft one day saying, hey, would you like to come work for Xbox? And I thought, oh, well, that's weird. Why? And they needed somebody who had an editorial background, which I did, and who spoke a few different languages, which I did. And from my journalism career, I was quite good at picking things up quite quickly and rolling with the punches. And so I thought, hey, why not? All right, I guess I'm moving to London. I'm going to go work for Xbox. And that's when I got into console. That was about 5 years ago now. How time flies. Hello, latecomers. How are you? Welcome. So I started working for Xbox. I was a producer and presenter there. I worked for something called Xbox Upload, which was the video sharing and editing platform that was launched with the Xbox One. So me and my team, we basically curated content on the Xbox One. We also created our own content. We would go to different shows and events around Europe and the States, and we would actually take members of the community with us so that they could interview and talk to the devs that made their favorite games, which was quite cool. And then from there, I went on to now. So after I was at Xbox, I moved over to Space Ape Games, and that brought me into the mobile genre, which is also very exciting. So I was still doing a lot of producing, presenting. I make a lot of content. I'm basically head of content for Space Ape, so that means making content for our community of players, but also making content for marketing materials, for PR, what have you. I sit on the marketing team at Space Ape. And then along with that also came, my role as community manager sort of expanded, and I also started producing events for our studio, speaking at events for our studio. There's a picture there of Games First. That's the first time we had it in London. So we partnered with Supercell. I'll chat about that a little bit later. And that was the first time that we moved that event to London, and I got to MC that. That was quite cool. So as a community manager, the community got to know me quite well. And this is me as a game character in one of our games. So that was like, for me, it was like, I've made it now. It was really exciting. This is Faye. And Faye is like a woodland warrior. And because in the game, Rival Kingdoms, that's where this is from, there was a character named Brander. You can see him in the top right there. He was like the German community ancient that I also had a hand in like creating the backstory for. He's based on like a dragon slayer in German mythology. And I was always in love with Brander, and the community knew that. And so my backstory in the game actually weaves together with Brander. So it's quite cool. Anyways, moving on. So, Space Ape. Who are we? We are an award-winning London-based mobile games studio. Founded in 2012, we have 4 live titles, Samurai Siege, Rival Kingdoms, Transformers Earth Wars, and Fastlane. We've got about 110 people in our studio now, representing 28 different nationalities, which is quite cool. So we are known, or I guess we made our name in the build and battle genre. 3 of those games are in the build and battle genre. But we sort of wanted to make sure that we had a good base and then expand outwards. So now actually most of our time is spent on developing new games in different genres. We partnered with Supercell last year, and that also helped us branch out into those different genres because now we have, I guess, more of a base, a bit more security to be able to delve out into more risky areas, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, 70% of our time is now based on or spent on coming up with different titles in new genres. I think we've got 6 or 7 titles right now that are in development, and they're all in different genres. They're completely different from one another. So why education? For me personally, the picture in the top there, that's Adventures in Learning. I volunteer with a group called the Hackney Pirates. It's a literacy program in Hackney, and we basically help kids after school with reading, with different projects that they might be working on. We usually have like a term project, and then we also work on the literacy skills. The picture in the middle there, that's the Digital Schoolhouse. If you guys don't know about that, you should. They're amazing. Shanila, who set it up and who runs it, it's been around for about 2 years now. I mean, I think the program was around for longer, but that picture there is from the esports tournament, which is still going on. Today is actually the final for that. Unfortunately, I'm missing that today. But yeah, they basically do a lot of work with play-based learning and getting kids and teachers excited about computer science and games. So yeah, they do fantastic stuff. I was a coach there for their Overwatch team. The team was better than I was. But, yeah, anyways, support. And then that last one there is our Varsity program, which I will chat about now. So what is Varsity? Basically, I remember all of my good teachers, you know, whether they were in school or outside of school, whether they were mentors at work. And I think it's really important that, you know, that we give back and that we try to be those people for you guys and for other people following our footsteps in the industry, because you guys are the ones who are going to lead the industry. So why wouldn't we give you exposure to that? Not only that, but, you know, someone like me, I didn't even realize that a career in games was possible. I kind of fell into it and ended up loving it. So I know that there are tons of people out there who may not even consider a career in games. They just need the exposure to it. And through something like this, we can give people that, whether they're in games or not. Yeah, so what we did for Varsity, first off, basically it's going to house anything that we kick off in the collegiate spaces. Are you? These guys right here are like the veterans of the Varsity program. They came to every single lecture. It was incredible. So what we did, we partnered with 2 universities to start. We were actually going to start with 1, but then 2 of them wanted to do it, and I was like, okay, we'll do 2. And that was the University of Greenwich and UCL. And we made 6 tailor-made sessions based around game design, game development. I'll go through a little bit what those covered in a second. So yeah, these were our classes this semester. You know, everything from engineering to community to esports, etc. There were our speakers. Adam and Lisa chatted about UI and UX in games. Adam talked about game design and the different roles that you could have within that discipline. Tom talked about creative engineering and math hacks and rapid prototyping. I talked about communities, building communities, how do you maintain them, and content. Pablo talked about teams. He was a coach for an esports team as well as a regular sports team for a long time, and he sort of bridged the gap between those skills that you would learn on an esports team or on a sports team and how you could apply those whether you're in school or whether you're at work. And then Andrew talked about live ops, so running events for competitive games. We got featured on Twitch for every single one of our lectures. We had, like I said, 6 lectures over 3 weeks' time, so every Monday and Tuesday Twitch featured us. Twitch Student is a really good initiative. They're trying to, they're basically trying to help us reach more students and more universities, so they help us out with that, which is great. We had more than 16,000 people watch our lectures, which is cool. So we got some press out of it as well, which is neat. So what's next for said program? So in the short term, we definitely want to be more involved with local schools and local universities. So this is from ELAM. I don't know if you guys know ELAM as well. It's younger kids. It's the East London School of Arts and Music. And we were there to judge some of their final projects in game design. They have a game design course as well, and we would feedback on their portfolios as well. Or if people send us emails, then we'll try to feedback on their portfolios, whether it's art or game design or whatever it might be. And giving lectures at local schools. So trying to get more involved with that collegiate community. And then long term though, I guess this is still current actually, there's another lecture that's happening in June at ELAM. If you guys are keen on coming, come on down. And then throughout the summer we're going to be looking at restructuring our master classes for the fall, because obviously there will be a new semester and we want to create a new roster of classes for the fall. Which brings me to our long term. So one thing that we realized with running these master classes was that it's a lot of bandwidth to physically go to the universities for each of these classes and set up and all of this stuff. And we're probably going to end up moving our lectures to our studio so that we can set up and tear down more quickly, and then we'll be able to run them for a longer period of time. And we also realized that the most engaging part of these lectures was usually like the Q&A part, so we want to allot more time to the Q&A when we're running our master classes next fall. But really, I would love your guys' input and what you guys want to see in these classes, whether it's a different discipline that you're interested in, or how they're structured, or what you find most valuable when we're giving these lectures, because it is about you guys, so we want your feedback. We're also looking at potentially creating internships through this program, and then also a scholarship down the line. So that is the educational side of it, but also another side of it is this part about esports. So one of our titles, one of our gajillion titles, is going to be a competitive multiplayer, and we're looking at potentially creating a varsity league for our multiplayer. So we're talking to the Newell, I'm sure you guys know them already, who run esports across the UK for universities, and then also UEM, who do the same thing but across Europe, and then also supporting those local clubs, grassroots clubs, which is great. They're all about gaming at universities, and we'd love to support that too. So, and moving on, best advice I ever got. Advice given to me, yes. So my old boss at Xbox, who's amazing, his name is James Shepard, and I love him. He always talked about you can either, some people when they go into, I guess, any discipline, but games as well, some people want the house by the lake, which means, they want to make a lot of money, they want financial success out of it. And then other people, they want to create something. They want to create something that's special, that lasts, that talks to people. And so he always said, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person who wants to create something, or are you the kind of person who wants the house by the lake? I'm definitely the person who wants to create something, so money has never been my focus, I guess. I always think that financial success is a byproduct of doing something you love, and when you do it well, that happens anyway. We hope. So I guess for you guys as well, think about that. Are you hoping to make a lot of cash, or are you doing something you love? And then this is from a random person, actually. Back when I was 16, 17, I was working at a candy shop. It was called Sugar Mountain, back in Ottawa. And it was one of those places where you have all types of candy and crazy buckets and it's like a, you know, like a paradise, but it wasn't a paradise because the manager was such a stickler and we weren't even allowed to have like a taste of the candy because there were security cameras everywhere, and even the discounts that we got were like quite shoddy discounts. So it was really expensive. So it seemed like a dream, but it wasn't. It was actually kind of an awful job. But he did give me some really good advice because I think I was like a key holder or something for the store at one point. I hadn't really worked my way up. And and I remember something about like the buckets or something. And I was like, oh, I think it's good enough. Like we had to clean out the buckets and somebody else had done it. And I was like, you know, I think it was good enough. And he was like, Deborah, never let anyone tell you something is good enough. And that has stayed with me for, you know, like 15 years. And I think that's really good advice, even though it came from like kind of a hard ass. But yeah, when you guys are doing something, like don't just accept good enough. You know, you should always try to give your best. And when you think like, that'll probably do, like have another think and see, well, is there something that I can fix or change or improve to make it better? Because yeah, you should have that standard just for yourself. Another one is be open. I wouldn't be in this career if I hadn't been open. Like I said, I never planned on being in the games industry. I never planned on this career, but because I sort of just rolled with it and was open to it, I landed here and I love it. So I think that's really important for you guys as well. Sometimes when you're first starting out, you can get really set on what exactly it is that you want to do, or you have this specific dream. But yeah, if I can give you any advice, is just be open. You never know where it's going to lead. And as long as you're open and you work hard at whatever you do, like a lot of doors are going to open for you guys, and you might not know exactly where those are going to lead. So be open. And then the last one, even though we're talking a lot about careers and, you know, doing well in your career, I think it's really, really important to not define yourself by what you do. Instead, you should try to, you know, who you are, let that define what you do, not the other way around, because jobs are going to come and go and careers are going to come and go, but, you know, you have to be with yourself always. So try to find something that grounds you, that's bigger than yourself, that's outside yourself, that can sort of navigate you even when, you know, your career isn't the main focus, because that'll help guide you as well in your career, I think. Those are the main things. So yeah, if you guys are interested in getting involved with the Varsity program, are you guys in the picture again? Yeah. You can shoot an email to varsity@spaceapegames.com. Like I said, we're going to restructure classes over the summer for next fall. So if you have any feedback, stuff you'd like to see, then definitely give us a shout. Also, yeah, if you happen to be in a gaming club or something in university, then also give us a shout, because we're interested in working with you guys as well. So. Yeah, well, now I'm gonna have some of my water. That's it. Questions? Yes, milady.
When you say I produce content, is it written content? What exactly do you produce?
So for me, for now, I do a lot of video content. I'm sure you guys know that like most content consumed these days is video content. I'm comfortable in that anyway because of my background in TV and stuff. But yeah, most of the content I produce is video. So whether it's you know, like walkthroughs and tutorials for games that we might have at our studio, or whether it's like a behind the scenes chatting to developers about one of our titles, or something to do with our studio in general. Or for example, we have the games showcased this evening in our studio, which is why I'm like slightly frazzled because I'm trying to do that as well. So we have a bunch of different games companies coming in to showcase their games in our studio. We're going to live stream it. So that also is something that I would call production. So like organizing events, making sure people are where they're supposed to be, making sure the tech is set up. All of that is also something that you can call production. And we'll probably create content out of that as well. So it's sort of twofold when I say producer, yeah. Yes.
When you said Microsoft called you, what were you doing?
You're like, how did that happen?
Yeah. What do you do that?
Yeah.
How do I get Microsoft to call me?
Yeah.
So believe it or not, I had, when I was chilling in Germany before I moved to London, I had put my CV on Monster, and somebody found it. And I guess also, actually, here's one more piece of advice: languages. If you guys can pick up another language, do it. My dad always harped on me about it when I was younger. I was like, why do I have to keep my German? Like, I'm only speaking English with my friends anyways. Why do I have to learn French? That was one of the main reasons, because if you speak another language, you're so much more valuable and you can reach so many more people. So for Xbox, I had to do a lot of community management with Germany, with France, and then with the UK as well. So that just made me a lot more attractive that I could speak other languages. Yeah, so also put your CVs on Monsters, guys. Other questions? No? Oh, yep.
You're saying your advice is don't accept good enough. You can fiddle with the game forever, so how do you know when it's done?
Yeah. That's true. Okay, so when I say don't accept good enough, I don't think that means like be a perfectionist until it drives you mad. Obviously, when you're developing a game, like sometimes I think you have to decide like what good enough is in that instance. So for example, we're developing a game and we're hesitant about, okay, when do we release it to external people? When do we release it to the community, right? Like, oh, is it good enough to go out? But really, it's not about whether that game is perfect and looks perfect and everything runs perfectly. Maybe good enough is, or maybe like perfect in that instance is, okay, we need to get people into that game so that they can have an experience with it, so that they can start telling their friends about it. And like that is more important than having the game looking perfectly. But maybe our idea of, best then is having lots of people interact with the game. Like that is the priority versus it looking perfect. So yeah, of course, in game development, I think that's always the hard part, is like, ooh, when is it done? And it might never be done. I mean, I think if you're, especially in game development, if you're honest about your process, then people are really forgiving. Not always, but they can be really forgiving. If you say, this game is still, still in alpha, still in beta, changes will happen, we'd love your feedback on those changes, then people can get really invested in that, and they might get attached to a feature or something, but if they know that it's not the final product, then I think it's a lot about communication. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else? Oh, yeah.
What's the best insight that you got from your students, from the students that you work with? Because it's a two-way exchange,
yeah,
always.
Definitely. So yeah, we got some really positive feedback so far in the classes. That people, I guess, just love having that access to people who are doing the roles that they might one day like to do. I think that, which is why I said the question part of it, I think usually is the most valuable, because you just want to pick someone's brain and say wait, how did you get there? And then what steps can I take to get there? So that's been the most valuable feedback, I guess. But also that our classes have complemented what they've been studying. So for one it was, okay, it's really nice to see that the stuff I'm studying is actually valuable, because sometimes it's not. And so they were like, okay, it's nice to see that what I'm studying will actually be used later on. And the other was, oh, that's not something I'm learning in school, and that can supplement my knowledge. Because the games industry changes so quickly, it's always moving. So by the time, sometimes when you're, if you're doing a 4-year program, by the time you graduate, everything could have changed in those 4 years. So I think it's really, really important for students to keep their pulse on the actual industry while things are happening. Yeah.
And what about the other way around? So your knowledge complemented their learning.
Yeah.
What about the other way around? Did their knowledge ever complement the things that you do in your studio? Were you like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we didn't know about this website or about this tool? And so
Yeah, I think actually at the at ELAB when we were doing the judging the pitches, it was really interesting to see the trends and what you guys are interested in, because you're the ones who are going to be playing our games probably a little later on. So it was neat to see, oh, this is the way things are going. People, for example, are really interested in narrative things, and they're like, oh, we didn't realize necessarily that that's where the trend was going to go, or they're less into FPSs these days and they're more into this. So I think, or even the social aspects that people are really, really keen on, especially your age group. So yeah, I think you can just learn a ton about the future community of your games, or even maybe current community. I mean, you're not that young, so yeah, you're probably playing our games as well. So yeah, definitely.
One more thing.
Yeah,
In terms of
last
in terms of the gaming clubs that you mentioned, I'm teaching a school in central London, and we
Okay.
just started a project. We call it actually the joystick project. We just
Okay.
came up with the name yesterday.
Amazing. Oh yeah.
And
Congrats.
there's a group of different students that we actually have. So what kind of support can they actually get from space?
From us.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're planning to do this summer most likely is hold like a social where we can get to meet the leaders of these different clubs and stuff and just see how we can collaborate, how we can support, etc. Excuse me. So yeah, if you want,
Okay,
I'll
so
grab
I'll
your...
5 minutes.
What's that? Yeah, I'll chat to you after and then
Good.
yeah, then we can invite you to that event. We haven't planned exactly when it's going to be, sometime this summer most likely. But yeah. We want to meet everyone. I think that's the big part. It's like we don't know everyone, right? This is for us to get to know people as well. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, good. Thank you.